Hey there YouTube, welcome back to our next part of the Lancia Delta Integrale fuel stumbling troubleshoot, or idle stumbling troubleshoot of the fuel system, I should say. When we last left off, we were looking at an extreme decrease in fuel pressure on our test of the injector system in the fuel rail. So what we're going to look at right now is how to do a leak down test on the injectors, and then we're going to look at a secondary issue that might be the root cause of the drastic decrease in pressure that we saw on our initial fuel pressure testing. So if you come around here, the way to go about troubleshooting or doing a leak down test on injector system, this is actually a pretty standard leak down test for any injector system. But we're just showing you obviously on the 16 valve Lancia turbo engine. You're going to have to pop this plastic cover off. We've gone ahead and broken everything down. This cover, be very careful with it. It is plastic, as you can see. Show you the anatomy of it. It is just these two straps that connect it over, and then some plastic clips from the inside. These are brittle over the years. This car's, coming up now on 30 years old. And so you're going to have brittle plastic. This piece is not easy to come by. Most all of the reproductions and everything are going to be shipping out of the UK. So if you're here in the States like we are, you want to pay extra special attention to not breaking these kinds of things. So go gently, release your clips one at a time, pry up gently. You'll be able to then take your manifold vacuum hose off from this side. It actually runs through this plastic cover, so you'll be able to gently get that up and out of the way. We've just bent ours and tucked it back there. And then you're going to find that your injector loom actually floats in that plastic cover up top. So you're going to have to wrangle the plastic cover out from under the injector loom. You will also have to release the fuel pressure regulator vacuum hose on the side here, the manifold regulation hose. Next, you're going to find resting beneath that this will be held in by two 4mm Allen heads, socket-style Allen heads. They go right through this plastic cover down at the base, and they go in here, and then there's a matching manifold support bracket on this side that also has a 4mm Allen in it. So you remove both of those, and you'll be able to take that plastic cover all the way off, out from under your injector loom, as I just said. Then you're going to have a 6mm through bolt, Allen bolt that goes up into the manifold, one on each side. You can break those free and spin them out. And then you're going to have two 5mm Allens per side, so 4 total, and you can take these brackets off. Once you have these brackets off, you're going to go ahead and you're going to go after the fuel injection rail itself. It's held in with 4 10mm bolts. There are washers on these, so pay special attention when removing them. And I'll try and get a better light on for you all here so that it'll be easier to see. You've got 4 10mm bolts on the fuel injection bracket, and yep, we got pretty good light on it. You're looking at this guy right here, and then one over, and then one over further, and then on the very end, one side or the other. So you've got those 4 10mm bolts. Once you get those all taken out, you'll be able to actually free up the injection rail. You got to go gently. You're going to be rocking each injector and the rail itself. You keep the injectors sealed to the rail, and you want to pull the whole thing out whole thing out of the manifold as the injection system complete. Don't go injector by injector. Be gentle. Plastic pry bars can be used very gently in certain areas. Find your points of leverage. Be cautious. You're really just fighting little rubber O-rings on those injectors, nothing else. Even if it's really tenacious, that's all you're fighting. So take your time, be gentle, try to not tear an O-ring because they are reusable. You may need to replace if they come out in too shabby a condition. Once you're out, we've already tucked our injectors onto some nice blue shop towels. That'll help us see if we're leaking or weeping from any of the injectors. So you can go ahead and follow a similar system. It makes it easier to inspect them. And then you're just going to go ahead and run your test. The test we're going to run, again, our fuel pressure gauge is on the injector rail side, pressure-wise. It's not on the feed line side. So injector rail side, cut off feed line. So we're going to be reading the pressure at the rail. We're going to watch it go down. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our fuel pump. Once we've started our fuel pump, we hit pressure. We cut that pressure off to the injector rail, turn our fuel pump off, and you can see our pressure is decreasing. It's not decreasing horribly, but it's decreased a little bit, and it is slowly dropping. As we watch it, I can get a better light on it. You're going to see it's probably about a pound every, I would say, maybe few seconds, pound every 10 to 15 seconds that we're dropping. So it's not super drastic, but we've done this test a few times and we've watched it just steadily drop and drop and drop and drop and drop. So now we come and we take a look at our injectors. Where are we losing our pressure? Are we weeping at all from the tips of the injectors onto our blue shop towels? And it does not appear that we have even one little droplet. You can also take your finger and gently put it in front of an injector. Check to see if your finger's wet. You can see the imprint of the injector on my finger there. You know, that one wasn't wet. I can check this one here. Nothing off of that one. I'll check this one here. Again, no fuel weeping out. You can also smell your finger for fuel. Such a delightful thing to say and do. So we've got no leaks from there, but our pounds are consistently dropping down. So that's a really interesting thing. What that tells us is that we don't actually have a leak from the injector or from the fuel injection rail. Well, we've already checked the rail, I should say. But you all at home should check your rail, check any end caps, plugs, any fittings, everything to do with that. We've checked our fuel pressure gauge manifold several times that we're actually connecting to our rail. Just want to be really sure that you know what you're chasing when this kind of a situation happens, because it starts to be a little more of a head scratcher. In the Lancia service documents, they will tell you as a next step, if this condition is the case, if you continue to lose pressure once you're in this situation, that you actually want to come to the bottom of the fuel pressure regulator and you want to clamp off this hose, the hose with blue type on it there on this particular car. That is the return line. Now, we've already verified that the return line is clear, but the reason that you want to clamp that off is that tells you diagnostically if your fuel pressure regulator valve is actually broken, not doing its job. In which case you would want to replace your entire fuel pressure regulator, because you could have a low pressure problem, or you could have an air pocket problem, surging fuel pressure, that kind of a thing. So in our situation, that's actually a test that we have performed, and we found that the fuel rail maintains a stable pressure and doesn't drop beyond an initial drop. That's your fuel gauge manifold absorbing some of the fuel pressure, because all this is rubber hose. So the more rubber hose you have, the longer your manifold is, the more drop you can expect. But ours will continue to drop over the course of the next 5 minutes all the way down to 0. And that's not the case, or that shouldn't be the case. You should hold stable pressure when you're performing an injector leak down. So the Lancia calls for clamping that line, rerunning your test, and you see what happens. In our case, we don't lose pressure past the initial absorption of the hoses. So once those hoses flex and absorb the initial pressure, we don't lose it anymore. We can let it sit for about 30 minutes. We see nothing, not even a tick down. So that's told us that our fuel pressure regulator valve is in fact faulty. We're going to go ahead and replace the fuel pressure regulator. We're going to go ahead and button up our injection rail back into the manifold, put everything back together, make this car a runner again, and we'll follow up with you in further videos and let you know how the diagnosis of this stumbling at idle issue goes.